Hello everyone, Not So Average Joe here. Today I'll be making a response video to a 4-year-old testimony. Why am I responding to such an ancient video instead of responding to something a bit more relevant? Well, I,
My name is Bo. I grew up in Fallon, Nevada, which is out in the middle of the desert. When I was really young, I was introduced into gaming. All my friends liked playing video games. I liked it, loved it. I really found it kind of a drawing, kind of almost addictive. Kind of absorbed my thoughts when I was in high school. I spent a lot of time thinking about video games.
yes, video games can be extremely addictive, I agree. As a hardcore gamer who plays games frequently, I can sympathize with the struggle. Hell, I actually had to fight myself to stop playing Far Cry 5 so I could make this video. But I can't help feeling like this video is a tad overdramatic. I mean, seriously? If I didn't know he was talking about video games, I would assume, based on his demeanor and the tone of the video, that he had been sexually molested or something. And I'm very glad that's not the case, of course, but right off the bat, the super dramatic tone doesn't seem warranted. But let's continue watching before I conclude such things.
After I left high school, I played a lot. After work, in my free time, on the weekends, I played all the time. I played because I wanted to drown out the life that I had created, a life without God that I had thrown away. I felt empty inside. I felt like I couldn't relate to people anymore. It began to absorb my mind, absorb all my time, to the point where it cut me off from my family. I tried to make video games the purpose for my life.
It sounds to me so far like you just had problems with self-control and some bad habits. What does that have to do with God? I mean, you don't need God to get into better work and social habits and spend less time playing video games. You just need sound advice and some willpower. But let's continue.
To drown out my problems at work, to drown out my problems in my days, family problems, I used it to drown out everything. Because I was a sixth-generation alcoholic, it became an addictive property. Basically another numbing effect to the mind so I could just drown out life itself. I had 2 really bad employments, so I had a lot of stress. I picked up smoking to help me deal with that stress, but my primary was coming home and staring at a screen and forgetting that I was in this world.
Well, it's obvious that you suffer from depression, another thing I can sympathize with, but again, there are plenty of ways to alleviate your pain that are more tangible and healthy than religion. In fact, one of my least favorite things about religion is that it teaches people that they are broken messes that can only be fixed by God. This is fucking horseshit. Yes, many people are broken, but there are better ways of getting in a healthier state of mind than religion.
My sister's been Bible working for 8 years. I knew she was a Bible thumper, as I called her at the time. So I was kind of hesitant to answer this, and I kind of knew the answer she was going to give me. And she gave me exactly what I thought she was going to give me. She says, well, why don't you see who God is and see if He can give you a purpose for living.
Sorry to interrupt again before he gets into the meat of his message, but it seems to me like you got manipulated into this whole Christian thing when you were in a point of emotional vulnerability. This is one of the main reasons people become Christians outside of childhood indoctrination. Life sucks, and sometimes it's too much to bear. Then comes religion offering you the cure. Just submit to God and Jesus. It's the only way you could be healed. I'm sure I'll get into this in more detail in a moment, but let's continue.
I blew off the whole thing where she told me about God because I had rejected God. But one thing I couldn't reject was the question she posed. What do you think the purpose for living is?
Well, that's not a bad question, actually. Ultimately, life has no objective purpose. It's up to us as individuals to decide what life means to us. What makes you happy? What are you interested in? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? These should have been the questions your sister was asking you, but instead I'm guessing she's just going to say it's Jesus or something. Yep, Jesus is what you need.
That one hit me deep. I didn't have an answer for it. My sister gave me a book. entitled See with New Eyes, written by Ty Gibson. Marvelous book. Highly suggest reading it. That book introduced to me a God I thought never existed. It was a God who wanted to have a personal relationship with me.
Let me get this straight. You went from not being convinced that God existed to believing not only that God exists, but a personal God that wants to have a relationship with you specifically, all from reading some book. Oh wait, that's not all that uncommon now that I'm thinking about it. Sounds to me like your standards of evidence are pretty fucking low. But I get it. You are in a place of emotional vulnerability, so things like logic and evidence weren't so important.
It was a God who actually really wanted to love me. Actually cared about what I did. Cared about what I did to myself. I felt this burning desire inside of me that something out there actually really cared about me.
This makes me sad to hear. Clearly, this guy didn't have very many people in his life who loved him or gave a shit about him, so he had to turn to imaginary friends to feel loved. And I know that sounds like I'm mocking, but I'm actually not. It's a bummer. It's a bummer that some people feel like they have to turn to imaginary deities in order to feel loved.
After I read that book, I started reading my Bible in the morning. At first, I just gave 10 minutes because that's all I really wanted to give. I couldn't see myself getting out of bed for half an hour to read the Bible, and I'd just fall asleep reading it. So I went to just 10 minutes. I started noticing how much I was really just addicted to video games, how much of my time it consumed, how much of my thoughts it consumed. It really started to bother me how much I was dedicating to video games. I really started to notice how much of an addiction I had with video games. I didn't want to admit it, but I was really starting to have an addiction. I really had an addiction.
Okay, so you have bad self-control. It's hardly an unusual habit. But what does this have to do with God or Christianity? Just fucking discipline yourself. I know that can be easier said than done, but it's entirely possible. I know, I used to be just like you when it comes to video games, and now I have all sorts of other hobbies. Like responding to idiots on YouTube.
And all God was trying to do was get me away from that addiction.
And you know this how exactly? Did this God tell you this directly? If so, you're insane. Did you get this from reading the Bible? Where in the Bible did it mention video games? Oh, it didn't mention them because it was written in a time before they were invented. Oh, but wait, isn't the Christian God supposed to be all-knowing? Ah, fuck it, I'll save that for another video. But the point here is, how exactly did you come to the conclusion that a God gave two shits about how much video games you played? My guess it was your own conscience that was getting the best of you. You yourself knew that playing that much video games was an unhealthy thing. It's not exactly a hard thing to figure out. You know, if you're sitting on the couch covered in bed sores, unemployed, out of shape, might just raise an eyebrow and be like, man, this probably isn't that good for me.
God felt like God came to me one day and said, I want you to get rid of it completely.
So you feel that God told you to stop completely? I wouldn't even say that quitting completely is the best step in that situation. Moderating yourself is. Quitting cold turkey can actually have its own negative consequences.
Back at Christmas time, I quit smoking. Now it was April, and God was telling me, get rid of your video game.
Okay, let's just assume that God is real for a second. And let's assume he actually is telling you these things. I can totally understand why he would want you to quit cigarettes completely. Those things are terrible. But why give up video games? It's a harmless and stress-relieving hobby as long as you play in moderation.
I want your time. I want your thoughts. And I can't spend any more time with you if you want to spend time staring at a screen, killing people, training your mind how to kill people in video games.
Oh, that's why. Because God is a petty little bitch who needs your full attention, just like an overly needy girlfriend. Stop playing video games, sweetie. Spend time with me. Woman, I've been at work all goddamn day. I just want to play a few rounds of Call of Duty. I can't spend any more time with you if you're too busy killing people. Killing people? It's a fucking game. I'm not killing anybody. You don't love me. That's what God sounds like. Pretty silly.
So I can't spend any more time with you. That's what it felt like in my heart. So I said, all right. It took about a week contemplating it, rolling it around, and I said, no, I can't give it up. it's my friends. It's the only two friends I really have. And God wants me to just give that up?
So you're getting all these super specific requests, or maybe even demands, perhaps, from feelings in your heart? How the fuck does that work? It sounds to me like your conscience is getting the best of you.
But at the end of that week, I said, this is where I draw the line. I either find out who God is and find a purpose, or I stay stuck in this world where it's the same thing day in and day out that I've experienced for the last 2 years. It's been absolutely dissatisfying in life.
Okay, so you had some problems and you wanted to fix them. That's good. Why is a God necessary for this exactly? I'm still waiting for you to back that up.
So I said, all right, Lord. I got online, looked up my headset on, friends were online. I told them, I says, hey brothers, I'm gonna stop playing video games because I feel God's calling me away from it. I didn't really talk much about the whole relationship thing with God to my friends because
They would think you were crazy.
they were raised in the Adventist church too, and they left because they were tired of the same thing I was tired of. I spent so much time blaspheming God in front of them and telling them F God and I don't care and I don't want nothing to do with God anymore, that I felt shame when it came down to telling them that I was leaving video games for God.
Oh, so your friends played video games specifically because they hated church? I doubt that. Video games is just a fun hobby and a great way to kill some downtime. I'm sure if they were raised in church, they were pretty grateful to stop going. Who the fuck can blame them? Being at church is worse than being at the DMV.
So I just said I'm going to quit playing video games because I think God's asking me to. It took a real humble pill to tell my friends that. Their only question was, why, man? God's not got nothing for you.
A pretty reasonable question. I probably would have phrased it more like, dude, God isn't even real. If you feel like you're playing video games too much, just exercise some self-control.
But I felt different in my heart. I says, yeah, maybe, but I'm going to find out. You might see me on in a couple weeks. You never know. Needless to say, that was the last time my friends ever saw me online.
Oh, I'm sorry guys. I hate sad endings.
I took everything that I had, video game, every piece of entertainment that I had, and I put it in a Tupperware container and I stuck it in my closet. I had $2,000 worth of video equipment. I had my TV, my headset, my Xbox, my PS3. I had stacks of games. I had all the new titles that ever came out. I knew almost everything about every other game. I knew where to find everything. I memorized half the guidebooks just to get stuff. And I took all of it and I packed it away and I threw it in the back of my closet and I says, I'm going to find out a different lifestyle.
Dude, just exercise some fucking self-control. Trading in one addiction for a much less fun, yet even more harmful addiction is not helpful.
That was the best decision I ever made.
Yawn.
As I read more and more about God, I found out so many more exciting things about God that I could never find in the TV screen.
Oh no? What about all those shitty Christian movies that come out all the time? It's going to be hard to watch those without a TV, wouldn't you say?
I didn't have to drown it out anymore. I could start looking for the small things. Yeah, I had problems. Yeah, things came around and I wanted to turn back around and run back to video games to solve my problems, but I thought, well, why did God's already brought so much joy into my life about bringing me more fullness. Why can't I just turn to Him when I'm having a problem?
Because he isn't fucking real, that's why. Even if there is a God, as unlikely as it seems, the chance of it giving two shits about you and your life and what video games you play and how often is non-existent. It's zero. It's not true. And it's this sort of selfish bullshit I hate about Christianity. Oh yeah, God is such a great guy for helping me get past my love of video games. Meanwhile, while I've been giving this testimony, thousands of children around the world have died of starvation, diseases, cancer, or natural disasters. Gay people have been thrown off buildings or beheaded, women have had their genitals forcibly mutilated. I could go on, but yeah, at least God help me stop playing some fucking video games. Jesus fucking Christ.
So when I had problems, I went to the Bible and I tried to find peace in it.
Why? What does the Bible have to do with fucking anything? What even made you think that the God you have this close personal relationship was even the one described in the Bible? It's an ancient book of desert mythology with all sorts of immoral shit written in it. It's a book that supports slavery, the death penalty for gay people and adulterers and apostates. Fuck that book. Your video game guidebooks probably had better life advice in them.
And I was richly rewarded for it. It finally seemed like God was giving me a purpose. And to me, this was the most exciting thing in the world. Life's a fuller story now. Each day is a new day. Each moment's a new moment. Because I have a purpose for living. I have a purpose for fighting through the trials each day. I don't have to let it bug me much. I don't have to drown it out. I take it to God, and I can have peace and I can have joy with God.
Oh, for fuck's sake. What does God have to do with finding happiness in life? What does God have to do with overcoming struggles? Nothing, that's what. And I know this is just speculation, but based on his demeanor and tone of voice, he doesn't actually seem very happy now. He still looks and sounds depressed. He's just traded in one addiction for a much shittier one. At least when he was addicted to games, he sort of had real friends. Now he just has an imaginary one and an ancient book written by bloodthirsty desert dwellers. I'm a gamer myself, and I used to be insanely addicted to the point where I had no one in my life really that I had any meaningful connection with. The solution was just some self-discipline. I started to be more social and work out more, along with getting better eating habits and losing weight, and finding some other things to do. I didn't have to put faith in a God to make these things possible, and you didn't either, and neither does anyone else who's going through a similar situation. I'm Not So Average Joe. And hey, if any of y'all want a game sometime, write your username down below in the comments and I'll send you an invite. I play on PS4 and PC. Y'all know it's me when you've received an invitation from the Flayed Man 666. I'll catch you guys next time.